Hi guys, so today let's talk about hair color and haircut and how these two things are connected, and in fact they are very much connected, and not many people and not even many hairstylists understand that. Some certain hair colors don't suit to some certain haircuts. I'm not gonna discuss color analysis today. I have several videos. Are you muted or clear? Are you cool or warm? I'm talking about contrast. I'm gonna leave the links on all these videos down below, and today we're not gonna touch this. We also are not talking about hair color for the body types. This is gonna be next series where I'm gonna talk about hair color and haircut for each body type. I'm gonna use this information that I said in this video applying to each type, and we're just gonna see different examples of the body types, how they look with this or that hairstyle and hair color, and what it does to their look. One disclaimer, when I go to Pinterest and I'm searching for different hair colors and haircuts, I find many pictures that are actually quite nice, quite flattering. And I know for sure that in real life, on different kinds of women, it also would not look like that. One thing is a model, a young girl with a certain hairstyle, haircut, and it's not very classic and classy, but it can look cool depending on how the picture was made. The picture can sell anything. Correct lighting, correct background, well done makeup, and well done hairstyling can change the whole look. Unfortunately, I didn't find as many pictures of women in real life with real light, whether it's inside or outside, with these haircuts and hairstyles. So we will have to turn on our imagination. So today I'm mostly gonna talk about texture, haircut, and hair color, and how these three things combined. Also, I'm not gonna show you different kinds of creative colorations because my channel is not about this. My channel is mostly about how to find your signature style, your lines, your colors, all these different kinds of colorations. It's more of a statement. Let's go from the smallest to the biggest. So first let's talk about fine and thin hair. I'm gonna talk about straight hair, and let's start from the minimal hair on your head, which is pixie haircut. In my viewpoint, pixie haircut looks great with any color, whether it's muted colors, mid-range colors, or it's very bright and intense colors, something like bleached blonde, fiery red, or blue black. This thing depends on your coloration and your body type. What I don't think looks good with fine and straight hair and pixie is patchy balayage. Sometimes it does look good, but in majority cases I realize that first of all it looks like a leopard if it's contrasted balayage. For example, you have very dark roots and very light ends, that just looks dirty, patchy sometimes. So watch for that. It just doesn't look clean enough. In my viewpoint, overall color is better. If the contrast of your balayage is not that big, for example, it's slight highlights, that also can look thinner. Believe it or not, if you have fine and thin hair and short hair, it will look fuller when it's overall color. It's kind of elongated your head, elongated your face. It's making the overall look clearer, more clean. Let's say your pixie is very close color to your skin. If your skin is brown, your pixie is brown, or your skin is beige and your pixie is more or less beige, then it can elongate your head and make your apex that is the highest point of your head. It's making your apex look visually higher. It's elongating your head. This is why many women who have rounded face or full face sometimes love to go for this kind of pixies, especially if they have fine hair and straight hair. They always feel like lack of volume. So by doing their color close to their skin and overall color, it elongates their head. Now, this thing might work for some body types, but for another body types, it doesn't work very well. I have great video, pixie for the body types. I'm gonna leave the link down below. There we talk about Kibbe body types, and there I'm talking more about the specifics of your body structure. If we talk about long pixie or that shaggy haircut, which is not yet a bob, but not a pixie anymore, these haircuts are normally very, very layered. If you already have thin and straight hair, you better not layer that much unless you're going for very edgy look. If that is what you want to go for, keep in mind that your hair is straight first of all, so your hair cutter should be very good at it because any mistake is going to be very thin. If you have balayage or highlights in this type of a hairstyle, this is easier for hairstylists to cut because this is how they are masking their mistakes. But on the other hand, that looks like you have less hair, which is very interesting. Normally, we know that when you're making balayage, you have visually fuller hair. With this kind of hair, with this kind of texture, it actually looks like less hair because hair looks patchy. You are adding too much texture already in shape, and imagine adding even more texture with the color. All these darker spots on your head will reduce the volume, and then from time to time you're gonna have this lighter feathers, which is gonna create actually much less hair. You have a lot of chopped out pieces, especially with straight hair because it normally lies sleek unless you style it. But now I'm mostly talking about when you're wearing it straight, what's happening. So I do suggest for this kind of haircuts, make it overall color. If you still want to go for balayage, probably not as contrasted, would be a little bit better. But on the other hand, the texture itself, the cut itself is already giving you that balayage because all those feathers that you have that are sticking out there, they are going to catch more light. Therefore, they're going to be slightly lightened already. But I noticed that if it's overall color, it does look fuller and not as patchy. I have another great video, bob haircut for the body type. So I'm going to leave the link down below if you missed it. So there we're talking more about how bob is influencing this or that Kibbe type. Another thing that can happen if you have this thin and quite bright yellow or white highlights on that dark base, you might look like you start having gray hair. There's nothing bad in gray hair. I'm just mentioning it because not many women want to go for that look when they're making this or that highlights, because highlights done from the roots, they look slightly less natural as balayage when you're painting and making all the ends of your hair brighter. But the roots are your natural color, so balayage normally looks softer and thicker in hair rather than highlights, especially these stripes that were popular in the 90s. I'm not recommending them to anyone for any haircut and hair color. Maybe if you have it, then just darkening your roots would be nice and melting a little bit that darker color into these highlights. This way it's gonna look much more natural. Now, if you have this shaggy haircut, especially be careful with highlight on medium color of your hair. Something like ashy blonde, chestnut color. If you have slight highlights or bright highlights on this kind of a base, it can look just dowdy. It just doesn't look modern enough. It looks very 90s, so it can look not elegant. And you know, just in general, when you're doing this cut, it is softening the look for sure because it doesn't have this geometric shape. It doesn't consist of triangles or rectangles or squares. It's quite uncertain, but at the same time what it does, it is blending and blurring your facial features and exposes them. So just in general, this type of a haircut is hard to find someone who would look great with this kind of hairstyle. Normally I noticed that whether stylists go for that, so they know for sure what they're going for. They have normally very specific style right here, so they know what they're doing. And other women who don't know what they're going for, they just think maybe their hairdresser suggested them to do this haircut, or they were inspired by some 90s, or it's just easier for them to maintain this kind of a hair. They feel like, oh, it's easier just to create some volume, and volume, that's what I need because it automatically shrinks my facial features. Sometimes it is as simple as that, but it doesn't mean that it stylistically suits to all of them, and especially doesn't mean that it suits to the style that they're wearing here. So this is why when we look at them, we know that she doesn't know the style. If this kind of a haircut is bleached from the roots, it reminds us a little bit of that 90s grunge teenage style. So if you're going for that look, it's gonna be a bit hard for you, first of all, to style your hair and to look expensive at the same time. Of course, we can find women who would rock this, but I'm talking about majority, because in the majority cases, it's not gonna work. At least make your roots darker, and at least make your ends not as sparse and thin. Make your hair fuller. This is how you can fix this quite fast. And the opposite, if you have this shaggy hairstyle in a very black color, that would look like 80s, 90s rock, like Joan Jett kind of a style. And she rocked it. But she's a rock star. She's a real rock and roller. She's cool. It looks cool on her. And also it suits to her coloration. But there are some women who just don't look good with that black hair from the beginning. I have a video, would you look good with black hair? I'm gonna leave the link down below. It just shows you what black color sometimes does to your not only coloration but to your features. So in this case, think several times. It is always better and safer to go for brown colors or blonde with darker roots. Now let's go to bob on fine and straight hair. First of all, it's very hard to do highlights and especially balayage on this type of a hair because all the mistakes are very seen. And then it's much harder to fix. It's very easy to make it patchy, to make it leopard color when the bleach accidentally transfers onto your hair and you didn't notice it right away, then it can leave a yellow spot. Overall, it's a great technique, and I think on bobs it looks stunning if it's done correctly. Also, they like to do money piece. That means very bright piece by the face, and actually not everybody looks great with it. In my body type series that I start in a week, we're gonna discuss this particular thing. Bob haircut, as far as this is quite geometric, and if we talk about bob that has same length hair, so bob without any layering. So this is where the highlighting or balayage technique has to be done absolutely correctly, otherwise any mistakes will be seen. So this is why when you're having bob, which is overall color, it can be any color. It can be bleached, yellow, red, brown, ashy blonde, or black. Mistakes are not going to be seen, so it's going to look rich and expensive. However, bob does look fuller with highlights. If your highlights start somewhere here at the top of your head, then your head will look more elongated with this kind of balayage. If your roots are dark up to here somewhere and then here you're starting your highlights, then it can make your face look slightly wider. So normally ladies with elongated faces and thin faces like to go for that type of a balayage. Sometimes some hairstylists, I notice they camouflaging their bad highlighting work with layering of their bob. So when you layer the bob, then sometimes you might not see where the streaks of color are going to as visible, because besides of darkness and lightness created with the color, you also have darkness and lightness created by the texture and the light, because all the shadows of your hair will look darker and all the hair that is sticking out, there's layers, yeah, they're gonna be closer to the light source, so they're gonna be lighter. This is where we can see that game between the texture of a hair and the actual color, which creates fuller effect, of course, but it can sometimes create more tousled effect, not as geometric. It does look softer. Sometimes it can look a little bit untidy though, so you always should check on that too. And on contrary, if you are doing overall color for your bob automatically looks more geometric, because overall colors with geometric cuts look more geometric, and overall colors with less geometric cuts look not as geometric, but definitely more clean than with highlights. With a fringe, especially across your forehead, it's gonna look more solid, more geometric, especially if it's overall color. If you have very geometric cut and a lot of highlights, that softens the geometry of your hairstyle. I still like razor geometric cuts with overall color. I think aesthetically it looks a bit more pleasing. It kind of fits. Now, if you talk about black color and this geometric cut, it can look quite severe. If it's far from your natural coloration, if you are not bright in your coloration and not cool enough, then it can look like a wig. But if it's close to your coloration, it can look quite geometric and quite dramatic. In this case, if your facial features are too soft, probably it's not gonna work very well, because that can add a lot of severeness to your look. But again, about this, we're gonna talk in my next videos. If we talk about brown color, it looks softer. If you talk about ashy blonde, again, it looks even softer. Red hair or white hair in this kind of haircut, that looks quite bright and geometric as well.
If it's far from your color, if it's far from your natural coloration, that can look like a wig.
But it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. For some body types, it looks amazing when they are going for something absolutely opposite to their own hair color. For some body types, it's actually cool to have something a little bit more artificial, I would say. Now, highlights and balayage is a different thing. As I explained you, highlights is something that is done with a foil normally. However, sometimes some balayage is also called highlights, because it's basically highlights, right? Balayage is normally a technique when you're painting on the hair. There are normally three main kinds of balayage. Is melted roots. That means that you don't see any stripes or streaks on your hair at all. The hair by the roots is darker and it has absolutely seamless gradient to light ends. Sometimes the difference between roots and the ends can be quite small, or it can be quite big. Next type of a balayage is bold balayage. So you basically are painting these triangles on your hair. It gives that very bold sun-kissed effect. Again, it can be contrasted bold balayage or not contrasted bold balayage, where your roots and ends are quite close in darkness to each other. And the third type is a baby lights, and normally they like to add money piece here. Baby lights is basically also balayage, and sometimes it's done also with a foil. Choose very small stripes of the hair. You almost don't see them. It looks like sun-kissed hair. It looks very gentle highlights. Sometimes you don't even see that, so it looks like a real texture of your hair. When it's a big contrast, then of course you see them. When it's a little bit of a contrast, you might not even see that it has baby lights here on top. Normally the ends are lighter. Of course, both highlights and balayage give volume and texture to the hair. So if you have dark brows, dark eyes, for you, more contrasted balayage will look a little bit more natural because we read it as your roots and your brows have same dark brown color. So it kind of suits you more and your eyes will not be lost in that blonde if you like to do that bright balayage. Long, fine, and straight hair. Cut your ends. Your hair should look healthy and thick on the ends. This is gonna look much better in general. Long hair with fringe, when the fringe is above the brows, can look slightly strange, especially if your hair color is dark ashy blonde and you don't do anything with this and you just do ponytail and this girlish fringe like this. Normally it looks styleless, so fashionless. It's much better in this case to go for longer fringe or curtain bangs or fringe that touches your brows at least. It's gonna just look more thick and more fitting to the rest of your hair, especially with mousy color. As I said before, European girls like Russians, Ukrainians, girls from Germany, girls from somewhere north, they very often have this mousy color of their straight and fine hair. Some of them, they have this long hair, they normally don't know what to do with them, so they just cut their fringe and they're good. But then they don't know what to do with all this stuff because it kind of doesn't fit to this outfit or that outfit, so they just do this ponytail and then they go. So the best thing here would be probably grow your bangs a little bit longer, maybe make this rounded bangs, especially some of them, they get a lot of hair for the bangs, and then here on the side it goes very, very thin hair, everything that is left after that fringe. Be careful with rich fringes in this case, unless you like to wear your hair on the bun, on the back, because bun is great. So if you have ashy dark blonde hair and you have natural color, you don't want to get rid of this, you don't want to color your hair, and you have fine and straight hair, maybe don't even do this fringe. You can do some layers by the face to soften it a little bit, or you can have this as long as you want and grow them as long as you can, and it's going to be very, very beautiful. You can do different updos, backdos, and it's gonna look very, very natural. If you have darker hair in this case and the fringe, it looks a bit better because it looks richer, it looks like you have more hair, more density, and darker overall colors normally have a tendency to look more geometric anyway, because ashy blonde doesn't look geometric. It looks very, very soft, and its softness is even more because of that gray muted pigment added there. If you have light hair or red hair, that can also look nice with a fringe too. Again, the fringe can be maybe a little bit longer to your brows if you don't know what would be best, and if you have thin hair, don't get too much hair for the fringe. Sometimes some sparse fringe also looks quite cute. I have whole series about the fringe, is one of my most popular videos, so you can check it. I'm gonna leave the link down below, or another video about fringes for the body types. I'm also gonna leave the link down below. Now, if you have long, fine, and straight hair, highlights or balayage, normally it doesn't matter which technique you use, foils or no foils. It's just mostly how it's gonna be applied. Normally, when it goes same thickness of stripes from the roots to the ends is gonna look very cheap, very 90s. So you wanna make sure that even if your highlights or balayage start quite close to the roots, it's much thinner here and it goes thicker, 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 and much lighter on the ends. That looks much more natural, much more expensive, and much more right. So normally balayage, when you're drawing these triangles on your hair, looks amazing on this type of a hair because it gives you much more volume, much more fullness and thickness. And again, it has to be done correctly. All the mistakes are going to be very seen, especially if you wear your hair straight. Also, when women have fine hair and long hair, they don't want to layer their hair because otherwise they will be left with those thin, very wispy ends. So how they can create texture by the color, by balayage or by highlight. So this is another benefit of that. You're still having these thick ends. Now let's go to wavy hair. So this kind of hair naturally have texture. So my message to you, first of all, if you are straightening your hair, check first part of this video where I talk about straight hair because it's very important in terms of color and how it interacts with the cut itself. So in this case, your color will also depend on your cut. If you are not straightening it and you like your wavy texture, then in this case, yes, the texture will be more seen. If you have overall color, it already is gonna play with the light a certain way, so everything that is sticking out will be lighter, all the shadows will be darker. So even if you don't have any highlights, any balayage, your hair will slightly look like highlights or balayage just in general. For short pixie haircut, same rules. Basically, overall color would look a little bit better. Color with balayage or highlights will look slightly patchy, and sometimes your hair will even look thinner because of the sparseness. If we talk about longer pixie and that shaggy overlayered hairstyle, again, it's not for everyone. Maybe in your case, your hair is just sticking out like this, and in general you have more volume, which is great for you. If you have balayage, also it depends on how much hair you have and on your face. A lot of this depends on your face. But normally those waves of different kinds of colors looks great. In some cases though, if your hair is quite thin, it again can look sparse, especially if the balayage contrast is not very big. Then it looks softer, it looks more natural. We can't even say that there has been some manipulation with the color, so we basically perceive it as the texture of your hair. When we perceive it as the texture, sometimes it looks sparse, it looks patchy, it looks like you just don't have your hair. Your hair just fell out. So that is the problem sometimes with that. So if you are not sure, just go for overall color, and it's amazing. Overall color is very underrated thing. Overall color is not less beautiful than balayage or highlights. So highlights on this kind of hair can make your hair look thinner rather than balayage technique. If you're doing balayage, then your hair will look like a fire, like a flame slightly, if your ends are brighter color, thick and light ends. If we go to bob for wavy hair, normally that looks great with any colors. It can be highlights, it can be balayage, it can be very bright colors from the roots, can be overall colors, it can be your natural colors. It all looks great. If you have a razor cut, it looks more geometric in your case, but still that waviness adds that texture to your hair and that softness to your hair. Sometimes tousled-ness too. It depends on how you style it. If you're styling it curl by curl, slightly more combed, then it's a one thing. If you style it in more tousled effect, it's another thing. But that depends more on your body type. You can also layer it. In this case, it's gonna look more soft and more rounded. So normally in all the colors, it looks great. It depends on your coloration and it depends on your preferences, on your style, and of course on your body type. If you have bleached blonde from the roots, it sometimes can look like a wig, but it doesn't look like a wig on women with light skin, light eyes normally. Sometimes it can also have wiggish effect if it bleached from the roots but your brows are very dark black or dark brown, even if your eyes are blue. But it's not bad. It's just some body types look better with that and some body types look cheaper with that. Same with jet black color or very, very bright orange or red. If you don't have this style sense yet and you don't have enough experience in that, so you might not notice if it's really fitting to your style and your body type. And if it does look good for your body type and your style, then normally that looks wow, amazing, and you attract a lot of attention. Small fringe in this case adds more geometry to you, especially if it's thicker. So with geometric colors it can look interesting, but still probably dark brown or dark ashy blonde would look more fringe in this case. The more layered bob is probably the less highlights I would do, but it depends on the basic color of your hair though. It's just on some hair it doesn't look very elegant and full, and on some hair it does look great. Long wavy hair, normally everything looks good. If it's overall color or highlights from the roots or it's a balayage, normally all that can look amazing. Different kinds of contrast also looks amazing. It just depends on your coloration more. If you have your hair bleached from the roots or black from the roots or red from the roots, sometimes it can look like a wig. Now let's go to curly hair or afro hair. Normally this type of hair is thicker hair and you have a lot of them. So if you have short, again, overall color looks a little bit more expensive than balayage, because first of all it's harder to do balayage on that type of a hair, especially if it's very short. Then it's very easy to make it patchy looking if the balayage is quite contrasted. If the balayage is not contrasted, that is even more making it patchy, because some parts will be just slightly darker and you don't understand if it's spots or what. Your highlights has to be done in a very certain manner, like this. If you have this thick lightened ends like a balayage. If you have thin highlighted stripes from the roots, then if your base is dark, which I assume is probably dark in a majority of cases, then in this case it can look like you start having gray hair, certain percentage. So if you don't want that, then probably don't start from the roots, because roots is the place which shows us, which gives us information about if it's gray hair or not. Because if your roots are very dark, then whatever is here, even if it's highlights which are are blue-white color, it's still not gonna look like gray hair, because gray hair we normally determine by what is growing from the roots. So here you just decide for yourself. Maybe the balayage you can do very contrasted light ends. It can be light yellow or even cool bleached platinum blonde color. If your coloration is slightly on the cooler side, that's gonna be amazing. Then if you have highlights starting from the roots, probably in this case caramel highlights would look better. If we talk about bob or long hair, any color would go great with curly hair, except for the one that I said. If you are doing this very, very bright light highlights on a very dark base from the roots and they are very thin, that can look a little bit like gray hair. The rest is up to you. It depends on your coloration. You can make your hair look very dark overall color or very light overall color. Many of these things depend on your coloration and on your body type. So least flattering would be probably 90s stripes, especially red and yellow. I would not recommend it to anyone, and I don't think that looks good with any haircut. Also, another thing that doesn't look good on any haircut, I would say brassy yellowish hair. It's funny because Bella Hadid, some time ago, she colored her hair blonde, and that was very close to that strange brassy unwanted shade. She as a model sometimes experiments with, she can do something that is considered to be too dowdy or no and kind of turn it into that edgy editorial kind of I can do that thing. But in a majority cases, if we talk about us walking in the street, and I don't even think that it was quite flattering her, it's just the whole thing, like her skin, her eyes, she has that makeup and that beautiful environment and that lighting. You know, you can make pretty much anything look good when you have this thing. But if we talk about us in real life, I think it's the least flattering hair color, because it looks like an attempt of a darker haired woman trying to be blonde, but she didn't reach it. So normally that hair color looks dull. If you add even a little bit of red in there or pink, this is how we can turn it into that strawberry blonde. If you have this hair color and you don't know what to do with it, just turn it into strawberry blonde and go like that for some time if you are sure that you can't go lighter for now because of the health of your hair. Alright, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope that was interesting. So we are starting a new series very soon about haircut, hairstyle and hair texture for the body types, and what David Kibbe said in his book about each of them, how we can apply it to modern trends in hair. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.